Welcome back to ABG Talks. Today, I want to sit with a big question. Will AI ever create a masterpiece like Leonardo da Vinci or like Vincent van Gogh, like the artists whose names have survived for centuries? Not just something impressive or technically perfect, but like a real masterpiece. The kind that people travel across the world to see. The kind that ends up in textbooks. And the kind that still moves people hundreds of years later. And to answer that, we have to slow down for a second. Because when we talk about great art, we usually focus on the work. But what if it was never just about the work? When you think about Leonardo da Vinci, you don't only think about the Mona Lisa. You think about the mystery around her smile, and you think about Leonardo as a genius ahead of his time, an inventor, a scientist, and a thinker obsessed with anatomy, flights, and engineering. The art feels bigger because the mind behind it was bigger. And when you think about Vincent van Gogh, you don't just think about Starry Night. You think about loneliness, you think about struggle, you think about a man who barely sold paintings during his lifetime, and you think about the ear, the letters to his brother, the feeling that genius went unnoticed. The paintings do matter, but the story magnifies them. Without the story, they are just beautiful images. But with the story, they become legends. And this isn't just true for painters. When people read Fyodor Dostoevsky, they're not just reading fiction. They're reading someone who stood in front of a firing squad before his sentence was suddenly reduced. Someone who lived through prison camps. Someone who understood suffering at a level most of us will never will. That bleeds into the writing. Or think about Sylvia Plath. Her poetry isn't just structured beautifully. It feels intimate. It feels raw. It feels like you're reading someone's internal storm. And that intensity is inseparable from our life. Then there's music. When people listen to Kurt Cobain, they don't just hear chords. They hear the voice of a generation that felt misunderstood. The imperfection in his voice weren't flaws. They were proof. Proof that it was real, humane. And even someone like Frida Kahlo, her paintings weren't just visual statements. They were autobiographical. Pain, identity, culture, survival. The art and the artists were fused together. The fusion is what created the legacy. And now, fast forward to today. AI can generate art in seconds. It can replicate styles, blend techniques, invent compositions. You can type in a prompt and receive something visually stunning almost instantly. Like this is how I create the visuals for this video. And sometimes it genuinely looks like something that could hang in a gallery. So technically, yes, AI can produce work that resembles a masterpiece, but resemblance is not the same as resonance, because a masterpiece isn't just about how something looks. It's about what it carries. History, risk, sacrifice, and timing. A masterpiece is heavy. AI doesn't carry weight. It doesn't struggle. It doesn't doubt itself at 2 a.m. It doesn't experience rejection. It doesn't grow up in a specific culture at a specific time. It generates based on patterns, and patterns aren't powerful. And patterns are powerful. but they're not lived experience. However, and this is really important, the story doesn't end there, because the future won't be human versus AI. It will be human with AI. And what happens when a real person with a real story uses AI as a tool? What happens when someone who has lived through loss, joy, injustice, love, or confusion uses AI to help express something that can't fully create alone? The story doesn't disappear, it evolves. The brush changes, the canvas changes, but the storyteller remains human. And here's something else. Even if AI generates an image on its own, humans will still build stories around it. We always do. We attach meaning to everything. We ask who created this and why? Why? What does it represent? What moment does it capture? Art becomes powerful when it represents something bigger than itself, a cultural shift, a rebellion, a generation's mood. And AI can produce visuals, but culture is human, and masterpieces live inside culture. So will AI ever create something visually as impressive as Da Vinci or Van Gogh or probably yes, and it might already have. But will it create something with the same myth, the same narrative gravity, the same emotional inheritance? Not by itself, because what made those artists immortal wasn't just their technique, it was their humanity, their timing, their story. History doesn't just remember beautiful things, it remembers people. It remembers context and struggle. Maybe the real question isn't can AI create a masterpiece, but maybe the question should be who will use AI to tell the next unforgettable story? Because tools have always changed. The camera didn't destroy painting. Digital tablets didn't destroy illustration. Tools evolve, but storytelling decides what survives. And as long as humans are the ones living, feeling, breaking, rebuilding, loving, losing, there will always be something machines can't fully replicate. Not because they aren't intelligent, but because they haven't lived. And maybe that's what makes a masterpiece a masterpiece. It's not perfection, but presence. So, if this conversation made you think a little differently about art, about AI, or about your own creativity, then this is exactly what I want to talk about in these episodes of ABG Talks. I'm not here to chase hype. I'm here to ask better questions. So if you enjoy these kinds of deeper conversations about future, creativity, work, and meaning, please make sure you subscribe to this channel. And if this episode resonated with you, give it a like. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people who are thinking about these same questions. Please also drop a comment. Do you think AI will ever create a true masterpiece, or will history always belong to humans? I read those comments, and I'll see you in the next episode.